A poor father gave everything to help his son travel abroad, but what that son did next broke his heart forever. This is the story of a poor carpenter who gave everything for his son's future. Joseph was a poor carpenter who lived in a small, rented room with his only son, Junior, and his two daughters, Ruth and Esther. Life was not easy for them at all. Every morning, before the sun rose, Joseph would leave home carrying his old, rusty toolbox. He worked all day, cutting wood, fixing broken chairs, building small tables, and doing any repair work he could find just to make enough money for food. The little money he earned was never enough, but Joseph never complained. Whenever his hands ached from the saw or his back burned from bending too long, he would look at his children and smile. They were his reason to live, his hope for a better tomorrow. His workshop stood at the corner of the dusty village square, a small wooden shed with a leaking roof and creaking walls. Still, it was his pride. That was where he shaped wood into dreams and kept his faith alive. Joseph wasn't just a carpenter. He was a father, a teacher, and a dreamer. His wife had died years ago, leaving him to raise the children alone. From that day, he vowed to do everything possible to give them a future brighter than his own. At night, when the village grew quiet, Joseph would gather his children around a small kerosene lamp. The warm glow lit their faces as he told them stories about life and hope. "My children," he would say gently, "life is hard, but hard work never kills. I may not have much today, but one day God will bless this family through one of you." Ruth and Esther always listened with admiration, their little eyes shining with pride. But Junior, his only son, often looked away, lost in thought. One evening, Joseph turned to him and said, "Junior, you're my first son. I want you to lift this family one day. Maybe you'll go abroad, work hard, and bring back good news. I want to see you fly in an airplane." Junior smiled faintly and said, "Papa, I will make you proud." You'll see that single promise became Joseph's biggest motivation. Even on the hardest days, he would whisper to himself, "It's for my children. One day, my son will make me proud." Every night, Ruth massaged his tired hands, and Esther brought him water to wash his feet. They loved him deeply and often sang hymns to comfort him when he was weary. Their soft voices filled the room like a prayer rising to heaven, and every time Joseph heard them sing, he would close his eyes and murmur, "Lord, bless me to bless my children." Behind the peaceful nights, however, hardship grew heavier. Work was slow. Some customers never paid. There were days he returned home with nothing but faith, but Joseph never stopped believing, because in his heart, he knew one thing for sure: a father's sacrifice never goes unnoticed by heaven. One hot afternoon, months after Joseph had fallen sick and weak from too much work, Junior came home from town looking unusually excited. He walked into the small compound with a big smile on his face and said loudly, "Papa, God has done it for us." Joseph, who was repairing an old stool, quickly dropped his hammer. His heart started racing. "What is it, my son?" he asked eagerly. Junior continued, still smiling. "Papa, one of my friends who works with a company in Lagos told me there's a great opportunity to travel to Canada for work. They are looking for strong young men, and he said he can help me join." Joseph's eyes widened in surprise. "Canada?" he repeated softly, almost in disbelief. He stood up slowly, wiping sweat from his face with his rough hands. "My son, are you serious? Canada?" "Yes, Papa," Junior said proudly. "It's real. I just need to sort out my documents, my visa, and my flight." They said I must act fast. Joseph felt tears gather in his eyes. He raised his hands toward the sky and shouted, "Thank you, Jesus. My enemies have failed. My son is going abroad." He began to dance around the compound barefoot, laughing and crying at the same time. Ruth and Esther ran out to see what was happening. When they heard the news, they joined him, clapping and singing, "Papa Canada! Papa Canada!" That evening, Joseph couldn't eat. He just sat outside, smiling at the stars. His dream was finally coming true. But then Junior's voice broke his thoughts. "Papa," he began softly, "there's something I need to tell you." Joseph turned to him immediately. "What is it, my son?" "Tell me." Junior hesitated, pretending to be nervous. "Papa, I need some money to start the process." My friend said I'll need about 2 million naira for my visa, flight and other things. The smile on Joseph's face faded a little. 2 million, he repeated quietly. That's a lot of money. Junior nodded quickly. I know, Papa, but please, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If I miss it, someone else will take it. I promise once I get there, I'll work hard. I'll send money every month. I'll take care of you, Ruth and Esther. Our lives will change forever. Joseph sat in silence for a while. The number kept echoing in his mind, 2 million naira. He didn't even have 50,000 saved. But when he looked at his son's eager face, hope returned. He sighed deeply and said, If this will make your life better, then I will find the money. I will do whatever it takes. Junior hugged him tightly. Thank you, Papa. You won't regret this. You'll soon be flying to visit me in Canada. That night, Joseph could not sleep. He sat by the window, staring at the moon, whispering, God, you finally remembered me. My son will go abroad. My children will never suffer like I did. But what Joseph didn't know was that his son's smile was not pure. Behind that excitement was a secret, a dangerous lie that would soon shatter the only dream he had left. From that night, Joseph's mind could not rest. 2 million naira. It sounded like a mountain too high to climb, but for his son's future, he was ready to climb it barefoot. He walked from house to house, meeting old friends, neighbors, and anyone who had ever promised to help him. Please, he would say humbly, my son got a chance to travel abroad. I need to raise money for his visa. Some people pitied him, others shook their heads. Joseph, are you sure this is real? One old friend asked. These boys of nowadays can lie. But Joseph smiled faintly and replied, My junior will never lie to me. I know, my son, when begging didn't bring enough, Joseph did the unthinkable. He sold his only piece of land, the same land his late wife had begged him to keep for the children. He took loans from the local cooperative and even borrowed from villagers with interest. Days turned into weeks. Every kobo he found went into one envelope. He stopped eating well. He stopped buying new clothes. Every coin he had, he saved. Sometimes Ruth and Esther watched him return home, looking older, weaker, and thinner. One evening, as he counted the money by candlelight, Ruth asked softly, Papa, are you sure Junior will really travel? Joseph looked up, smiled gently, and said, My daughter, even if I must suffer now, it will be worth it when I see your brother enter an airplane. When he finally raised the full amount, 2 million naira, he wrapped it carefully in a brown envelope. His hands shook as he handed it to Junior. My son, he said, this is all I have. Go and make us proud. Don't forget your sisters. Remember the family name. Junior took the envelope, knelt down and touched the ground. Papa, thank you. I won't forget you. I promise. The next morning, the whole village gathered at the motor park to see Junior off. They sang, clapped and cheered. Make us proud, Canada man, they shouted. Some even sprayed small naira notes on him as he waved from the bus window. Joseph stood by the roadside, tears rolling down his face. He couldn't believe it, his dream was finally coming true. His son was on his way to Canada. He raised his hands and prayed loudly, God, protect my son. Let him reach safely. Let him remember where he came from. But as the bus disappeared down the dusty road, a strange feeling passed through his heart, a whisper of doubt that he quickly pushed away. He smiled through his tears and said softly, My poverty is ending today. Little did Joseph know that the journey his son had started that morning wasn't to Canada. It was the beginning of his greatest heartbreak. The journey that was supposed to lead to Canada ended in Lagos. When Junior got down from the bus, he didn't go to any airport. He didn't even have a passport. Instead, he went straight to a friend's apartment in Lekki, a friend who lived wild and free, always surrounded by loud music, flashy clothes, and empty promises. At first, Junior told himself it was only for a few days, just to relax before traveling. But days turned to weeks, and weeks turned to months. He began to enjoy the city life. He bought new clothes, expensive shoes, and a brand new phone. He went to clubs, spent money on drinks, and surrounded himself with friends who only loved him for his cash. They called him Canada Boy, and he liked the sound of it. Every night, the sound of music and laughter filled the air, while his father, far away in the village, knelt by his bedside praying, Lord, let my son find his feet in a strange land. Junior didn't care. He was living fast and wasting faster. But to keep the lie alive, he sent his father voice notes. "Papa, I arrived safely," he said one evening, pretending to be tired. "They're training us before we start work. Canada is cold, but I'm doing fine." Joseph cried tears of joy when he heard that message. He played it over and over until he memorized every word. He told everyone in the village, "My son has reached Canada." He even sent me a message. When people asked for pictures or a video call, Junior always had an excuse. "Papa, the network here is bad." "Papa, we are not allowed to use cameras during training." And Joseph believed him. Why wouldn't he? He had trusted his son with his whole heart and his whole life. Every evening, Joseph sat under the mango tree, proudly telling anyone who passed by, "My son is in Canada now. He'll soon start work." Meanwhile, in Lagos, Junior's pocket was drying up. The 2 million naira was almost gone, swallowed by city rent, women, drinks, and false pride. His new friends began to disappear one by one. One night, when he counted the last few notes left, reality hit him hard. He had no job, no visa, and no plan. Only guilt, heavy and cold, began to follow him wherever he went. Still, he couldn't face the truth. So he stopped calling home. He told himself, "Papa will understand later." But far away in the quiet village, Joseph was beginning to worry. Junior's calls were coming less often. His voice messages stopped. When Joseph tried to reach him, the line was always off. He waited, prayed, and convinced himself that Canada work is hard. But in his heart, a silent storm was growing, one he didn't know would soon destroy everything. The music was deafening. Lights flashed red, blue, and gold across the crowded Lagos nightclub. The air was heavy with perfume, smoke, and laughter. Junior sat in the VIP section, surrounded by girls and friends who cheered at every word he said. A shiny gold chain hung around his neck, and a bottle of champagne sat on the table beside him. "Canada boy," one of his friends shouted, raising his glass. Junior laughed proudly, spraying money into the air. "You don't know what it means to live big," he bragged. "I just came back from Canada. I'm living life." The crowd roared with laughter and applause. The girls clapped and leaned closer to him, pretending to adore him. Junior smiled, enjoying the attention, but deep inside he felt an emptiness he couldn't explain. As the DJ changed songs, his mind flashed with images of his father's face, kind, proud, trusting. He blinked hard and took another sip of his drink to drown the thought. When the night ended, he staggered outside into the cool Lagos air. His head spun from the alcohol and his heart from guilt. He whispered to himself, "I'll fix everything later. I just need more time." But time was already slipping away. Far away in the quiet village, Joseph still waited by the small window of their rented room. The wooden chair that Junior had made years ago sat beside his bed untouched, gathering dust. Every night Joseph prayed, "God, please protect my son in that foreign land." He told everyone that his son was in Canada, working hard and preparing to send money home soon. But weeks turned into months, and the phone calls stopped coming. Even the neighbors began to whisper. "Maybe his son didn't travel after all," one said softly. Joseph would smile faintly and reply, "My Junior would never lie to me. He will call soon." Then one afternoon, a familiar face appeared in the village. Uncle Emeka, a trader who often traveled between Lagos and home. He looked worried as he approached Joseph's workshop. "Joseph," he said gently, "I need to ask you something. Are you sure your son is in Canada?" Joseph laughed nervously. "Of course. He's been there for months now. Why do you ask?" Emeka sighed heavily and shook his head. "Because I saw him last week in Lagos at a nightclub. He was drinking, throwing money around and surrounded by women. I called his name, but he pretended not to know me." Joseph froze. His hands began to tremble. "That's not true," he whispered. "That can't be my son." Emeka's voice was quiet but firm. "Joseph, it was him." That night, Joseph couldn't sleep. He sat in darkness, staring at the wall, his heart pounding. He picked up his small phone and dialed Junior's number again and again. "The number you are trying to call is switched off." He called until his tears blurred his vision. The phone slipped from his hand and hit the floor. And as he sat there in silence, one truth hit him harder than anything in his life. The son he had sacrificed everything for had deceived him. From that night, Joseph was never the same. He stopped going to his workshop. His once strong hands that carved wood now trembled whenever he tried to lift a hammer. The tools lay untouched, covered in dust, like forgotten memories of better days. Every morning, he sat quietly under the old mango tree beside his workshop, the same place where he once dreamed of Junior's success. Now he sat there in silence, staring at nothing, lost in thought. Sometimes his lips moved slowly as he whispered to himself, "What did I do wrong? Where did I fail my son?" Ruth and Esther often found him like that, his eyes red, his shirt damp from silent tears. They tried to cheer him up. "Papa, please eat something," Ruth would beg, but he would shake his head gently. "I'm not hungry, my daughter." Days turned into weeks, and the once lively Joseph became a shadow of himself. The man who used to fill the village with the sound of his hammer and cheerful laughter was now quiet, broken and pale. The neighbors noticed. Some pitied him. "Joseph, take heart," they said softly. "Maybe your son will return one day." But others mocked him behind closed doors. "That's what happens when a man trusts too much," one said. "He believed that boy completely, and now, look at him." Every word felt like a knife to Joseph's chest. He avoided people as much as he could. Even walking through the village became painful. Every face reminded him of the lie he believed. At night, when the world was silent, he lay awake on his old mat, staring at the ceiling. The laughter of his children was gone. The room felt colder, emptier. Sometimes he prayed, whispering through his tears, "God, if I could just see my son one more time, to ask him why." Ruth and Esther watched helplessly as their father grew weaker. His hair turned grey faster than the seasons changed. He ate little, spoke even less. The name Junior was now a wound he carried in silence, too deep to touch, too painful to forget. The man who once dreamed of seeing his son board a plane now prayed for just one thing, the strength to survive each new day. 2 years passed. The once celebrated Canada boy had become a forgotten name in the village. Junior's life in the city had fallen apart. The friends who once surrounded him when he had money now avoided his calls. His savings were gone, his clothes were worn out, his phone was broken, and the flashy lifestyle that once made him proud had turned into a nightmare. He slept on the floor of a small, dirty room behind a bar, working odd jobs to survive. Some days, he didn't even have food to eat. At night, memories of his father's voice haunted him. "My son, be wise. Don't forget where you came from." He would turn on his old phone, scroll through their last text messages, and cry. Regret burned in his heart like fire. Finally, one morning, Junior decided to return home. He had nothing left, no money, no pride, no hope. Just guilt and a small bag of torn clothes. When he arrived in the village, people stared. Some whispered, others laughed quietly. Is that not Joseph's son? So he finally came back. The city finished him. His steps were slow and heavy as he walked down the dusty road that led to their compound. The house looked smaller than he remembered. The paint had faded and the workshop door hung loosely on one hinge. Joseph was sitting under the mango tree, his eyes half closed in thought. He looked older, weaker, thinner, like time had taken everything from him. When Joseph lifted his head and saw Junior, his expression froze. He didn't move. He didn't smile. He just looked at his son, speechless. Junior dropped his bag and ran to him, falling to his knees. "Papa, I'm sorry," he said, tears running down his face. "Please forgive me. I was foolish. I let greed blind me." Joseph's lips trembled. He wanted to speak, but his heart was too heavy. He just looked at Junior and said quietly, "So, Canada is this close to the village?" The words cut through Junior like a blade. He bowed his head and cried harder, holding his father's feet. "I've lost everything, Papa. My friends, my money, my pride, all gone. Please don't turn me away." The whole village began to gather, drawn by the sound of crying. Men, women, and children stood watching the prodigal son, begging for forgiveness. Some shook their heads. "He deserves it," one man muttered, but others wept quietly. Joseph stood up slowly. His eyes were wet with tears. He wanted to forgive, but the pain was too deep. He turned away and walked back into the house without another word. Junior remained kneeling in the dust, his head on the ground, weeping as the crowd watched in silence. The proud boy who once bragged in clubs and city streets now had nothing left, not even his father's trust. After Junior's return, the atmosphere in Joseph's compound grew heavy. He was alive, yes, but something inside Joseph had died long ago. Days passed, and Joseph barely spoke to anyone. He sat by the window each morning, staring into space. His once strong hands now trembled when he tried to hold his hammer. The man who once built furniture for half the village could barely lift a piece of wood. Ruth and Esther watched helplessly as their father faded before their eyes. "Papa, please eat something," Esther would say, holding a plate of food. Joseph would smile weakly. "Don't worry, my daughter. I'm not hungry," but deep down he was. Hungry for peace, for pride, for the joy he once had before everything collapsed. Junior tried to help. He swept the workshop, repaired broken chairs, even fetched water for his sisters. But Joseph avoided him. He couldn't look at the son who had destroyed everything he worked for. One evening, as the sun went down and the air turned cool, Joseph coughed violently. The sound echoed through the compound. Ruth ran to him, terrified. "Papa, are you okay?" He waved his hand weakly. "I'm fine," he said, forcing a smile, but he wasn't. The sickness grew worse. He could barely stand without support. His once bright eyes became dull, his skin pale. The villagers whispered whenever they saw him. Joseph never recovered, they said. That heartbreak broke his spirit. Junior felt the guilt crushing him. He wanted to make things right, but it seemed too late. He sold his only wristwatch to buy medicine. He worked on people's farms for small pay just to feed the family. Still nothing changed. One rainy night, Joseph called his children close. His voice was soft, almost fading. "My children, listen to me. Don't ever let money make you forget who you are. Junior, you broke me, but I still love you. I pray you find your way back to God." Tears ran down Junior's cheeks as he held his father's weak hands. "Papa, please don't talk like this. I'll make it right. I'll fix everything." But Joseph only smiled faintly, his eyes glistening in the dim lantern light. "It's in God's hands now." The sound of rain filled the silence as Joseph leaned back on his mat, coughing softly, his breath growing slower with every passing second. The next morning, the rooster crowed and the village slowly came alive. But in Joseph's house, there was only silence. Ruth was sweeping the compound when she noticed her father hadn't come out as usual. She dropped her broom and went inside. "Papa?" she called softly. No answer. She moved closer and saw him sitting quietly on the edge of his bed, staring at the door. His hands were trembling. Sweat ran down his forehead. "Papa, are you okay?" Ruth asked, rushing to his side. Joseph tried to speak, but his words came out weakly. "My chest, it feels tight." Ruth screamed for help. Esther and Junior ran in. Junior held his father in his arms, crying, "Papa, please stay with us. Don't leave me." The neighbors came rushing in. One of them shouted, "Take him to the clinic. Quick." They carried Joseph outside, laid him on a motorcycle, and rushed toward the village health center. The road was rough and muddy from the night rain. Junior kept whispering, "Please, God, don't take him now. Please." But when they arrived, the nurse could only shake her head. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "He's gone." Junior froze. His heart went cold. He held his father's lifeless hand and began to cry uncontrollably. "Papa, please wake up. I'm sorry. Please give me one more chance." The nurse turned away, tears filling her eyes. They removed their caps in silence. The news spread through the village like fire. People gathered in small groups, whispering, "Joseph is gone." Ah, heartbreak killed that man. That evening, as the sun disappeared behind the palm trees, Junior sat beside his father's body, weeping. Ruth and Esther cried uncontrollably, their voices breaking the quiet night. The same compound that once echoed with laughter now felt empty, like the life had been drained out of it. The day of Joseph's burial was heavy and quiet. Dark clouds hung over the village like a shadow of sorrow. The air smelled of wet earth and tears. People gathered under a big mango tree, whispering as the coffin was carried out. Junior stood beside it, trembling. His face was pale, his eyes swollen from crying all night. Ruth and Esther sat under a small canopy, holding each other tightly. When the pastor began to pray, Junior fell to his knees. "Papa, I failed you," he cried. "I took your dreams and destroyed them. But I promise you, I will make things right. I will make you proud again." Some villagers shook their heads. Others wiped their eyes silently. The burial ended, but the shame did not. After that day, Junior found himself completely alone. People crossed the road when they saw him. Children pointed at him, whispering, "That's the boy who killed his father." The same friends who once partied with him in Lagos never picked his calls again. But instead of giving up, Junior decided to change. He went back to Lagos, not for pleasure this time, but to work. He took a job at a furniture workshop, cleaning sawdust and carrying planks. Every evening, when the workers left, he stayed behind to learn. The sound of the saw reminded him of his father. Every time he shaped a piece of wood, it felt like an apology. Months passed. Junior worked harder than he ever had in his life. He stopped drinking, stopped chasing women, and started saving money. His boss noticed his dedication and promoted him to a carpenter's assistant. Later, he began taking small furniture contracts on his own. He didn't waste a single naira. Each week, he sent money home for Ruth and Esther's school fees. He paid off the loan from the cooperative and even returned money to the villagers his father had borrowed from. 3 years later, Junior returned home, this time as a changed man. He walked through the same village streets where people once mocked him. But now heads turned for a different reason. He was dressed modestly, his eyes calm and humble. He built a small new house for his sisters and renovated his father's old workshop. On the wall, he hung a signboard that read, "Joseph and Son Furniture Works, built on truth and hard work." Finally, he organized a proper burial ceremony for his father, just as he had promised. The village gathered once more, but this time not in mockery. People said, "Joseph's son has truly changed. He has made his father proud." When the ceremony ended, Junior stood quietly by the grave. The wind blew softly through the trees. He placed fresh flowers on the soil and whispered, "Papa, I didn't keep my first promise, but I've kept this one. Thank you for not giving up on me, even in death." As he walked away, the sun broke through the clouds. It was as if heaven itself was smiling. Life has a way of teaching lessons that words alone can't express. Joseph's dream was simple: to see his son rise above poverty, to see him live a better life. But dreams built on lies always crumble. Junior's mistake destroyed everything for a while, but pain became his teacher. Through loss, he discovered the true meaning of success: not wealth, not travel, but character. He learned that a good name is worth more than money, that the tears of a parent are heavier than gold, and that redemption is not found in running away, but in returning, rebuilding, and making things right. So if you're watching this, remember, no matter how far you've fallen, it's never too late to rise again. And if your parents are still alive, love them, respect them, and never let greed blind your heart. Because some dreams, once broken, never come back. Tell us in the comments, what lesson did you learn from Junior's story? Did it remind you of someone you love? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful African stories that touch the heart, heal the soul, and inspire change.